In this video, we will focus on what social resilience is and what structures contribute to resilience. Building resilience to climate change in an equitable way involves addressing those root causes of vulnerability that we spoke about in the last video. In building community-wide climate resilience, you are trying to make sure that no one group of people, and especially those living with social vulnerability, experience disproportionate impacts to climate change. In order to do this, you'll need to center social resilience in your climate resilience planning.
What is social resilience?
Social resilience is also defined in many different ways depending on who's doing the defining. Social resilience in general refers to the conditions that communities live with that foster their ability to cope with, recover from, and even thrive in the face of external stressors. No matter how it is defined, social resilience involves investing in all aspects of a community health's well-being, decision-making power, and cultural assets. This includes housing, food, and economic well-being, but it also includes dignity, a sense of community, access to life-affirming cultural and spiritual resources, and very importantly, having the capacity and information to fully participate in democratic processes, including having the voices and choices of socially vulnerable groups respected in the process, and much more. We might be tempted to think about resilience as a characteristic of individuals, because we do know that people are pretty good at taking care of themselves when they have resources, structures, and support systems to do so. But resilience is actually a characteristic rooted in communities. The condition and level of social cohesion, social connection, as well as access to resources, information, and opportunity in an individual's community are what truly determines their individual or family's resistance.
So what does resilience look like? Community-led mutual aid initiatives connecting people to housing resources and support. Community gardens and urban food forests that provide spaces of connection and food security. Community-based paratransit systems open to all members of the community. Universal school breakfast and lunch programs.
So what are the structures that foster resilience?
Using universal design principles has widely been shown to foster social resilience. Universal design involves designing systems or infrastructure in a way that makes the benefits accessible to everyone, particularly those who may be more vulnerable or otherwise experience physical or social barriers. One of the core values of universal design is equitable access for all who need it, with the goal of minimizing or dismantling barriers. One of the most common examples of universal design in action are sidewalk curb cuts that enable people with mobility challenges to cross streets safely and which also support caregivers pushing strollers. Decades of research in the United States and around the world has shown that interventions that are targeted for the groups most likely to experience social vulnerability are interventions that support the resilience of their entire community.
Communities living with social vulnerabilities, with histories of exclusion, or who are currently marginalized also have assets that can be leveraged to build resilience. Within communities who live with inequity and disproportionate risk, you will also find people who can speak multiple languages, formal and informal mutual aid networks, and the ability to self-organize within the community. Creative problem-solving abilities, places where people feel safe congregating, spaces of connection, the ability to take care of vulnerable people like elders, children, and people living with disabilities. Traditions and practices of multi-generational living and community care are often widely found in our most vulnerable communities. These are ways of being that, if fostered, strengthened, and then replicated community-wide, would create the conditions for resilience in your community.
Building climate equity depends on what kinds of social vulnerability and what kinds of community assets exist in your community. It's important to know that there is no one way to do this. Throughout the 2.0 process, you will have the opportunity to learn from other members of your court team and from other court teams across the state.